Hey, what's up, guys? This is Adam with the Airtime Misfits podcast, and I am here with Nick.
What's up?
And we have a very special guest today. You might know him from Airtime Thrills, which you can find on Instagram and YouTube. It's Chris. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Hey, great. Thanks, Adam and Nick. Thanks for having me on.
Today, we have a fun episode, so slap on your board shorts, put on that sunscreen, because we're going to be talking about Windjammer surf racers located at Knott's Berry Farm in beautiful California. So stay tuned.
As we all know, Windjammer Surf Racers was a short-lived attraction at Knott's Berry Farm, only lasting just about 3 years, 97 to 2000. Just some fun specs about it. It was a TOGO looping wild mouse. So really one of its only kind. I think this might have been the only TOGO looping mouse.
At least in the United States.
At least in the United States,
Yeah.
absolutely. Height was 69 feet at 40 miles an hour. The one interesting fact about this, though, that might have differed from other looping mouses similar was that this was a dueling looping mouse, meaning that there were two sides that dueled each other. And as we'll find out later, that was not always the case, especially toward the end of its life.
Right.
So, yeah, it lasted about a minute and 30 seconds, and the cost was about 6.2 million big ones.
Yeah, that's seems like a lot for a wild mouse coaster.
Yeah, especially for Togo and, kind of
Right.
the reputation they already had in the United States,
Yeah,
not sure what Knott's was thinking.
The only thing I can think of is maybe because there's two tracks. That's the only thing that have driven the
That's
the
true,
price
yeah.
up.
that's a
So
good
it's-
point. Yeah,
It's technically two coasters. Yeah. So,
'Cause I thi-
interesting.
yeah.
Go
I was
ahead.
gonna say prior to Windjammer, I think Togo they had built their coaster in Las Vegas. I forget what it's called. The one at the New York Hotel.
that opened a couple months before this, I believe.
Right.
Okay.
And then of course they did like King Cobra at Kings Island, the stand up
Yep, and Shockwave.
and
And
Shockwave.
Shockwave
Yeah.
was the only other one, yeah.
So they did have some coasters in the United States, and so like Nick was saying, though, this was the first looping wild mouse coaster in the United States. So the main reason why we want to have Chris on today is because he is actually one of the very few lucky people who had the rare opportunity to ride Windjammer Surf Racers. So what do you remember about the ride?
So you got to be a enthusiast of a certain age to have ridden Windjammer.
Absolutely, you had to like the moment, like the time had to like align just right for you to
Right.
be in the right place at
Oh,
the right time.
One, you had to be riding coasters over 20 years ago,
Right, right.
and you had to be at Knott's in a very short window of time. So,
Right, yeah.
So yeah, I started going to Knott's in 1990. Well, I was going to Knott's in the early 90s, but I was a little kid.
Did you grow up in California?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
I'd always lived in California until this past year.
Yeah, and
so-
you're in Oklahoma now?
Yeah,
Okay.
where I'm now.
Yeah, big
So-
difference. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a big difference.
Right.
So in terms of like, I would go to Knott's quite a bit back in the early 90s, but I was 5-6 years old. I don't remember
Right.
too much of it. Didn't really ride anything until I want to say 98. That's when I finally got on like Montezuma's Revenge for the first time
Oh, yeah.
and Boomerang for the first time. And then, of course, right across the way from Boomerang was Windjammer.
Ah,
And I still have some like pictures I took from like 98, 99. And I still have like there it is, Windjammer right there. I have proof
Right.
that I was there. Um,
so
so,
cool.
so at the time, I don't know, 10, 11 years old. Any looping coaster is kind of a big deal.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
Right.
Nowadays, if I see something like this, I would just be like, forget it. I'll ride
Not
this
worth
thing.
the
and
credit.
It's terrible. But at the
Yeah.
time, it's like, oh, this thing has a loop.
Right.
That's, that makes it interesting and makes it kind of scary for a
Yeah.
11-year-old person
Oh,
who
yeah.
doesn't know anything about coasters. So I kind of wrote it with that mindset. I wasn't thinking like, God, this is god awful. But
Right.
so I can't say at the time I can say it was a terrible coaster. I do remember it hurt like hell because those big bulky over the shoulder restraints.
Yes.
Oh, Those Togo
completely
restraints. Yeah.
Yeah, they were bigger than the train themselves.
Oh,
Yeah, they're not very forgiving either, especially
Oh.
on like a little person's ears.
Yes. Yeah. So
oh.
you're sitting there, you're like 4'5", and you got these
Yeah.
restraints just like completely surrounding you.
Yeah, like two
they
cinder
look,
blocks on
they
either
look
side of your
huge.
head.
Right.
Yeah.
They look huge on a normal sized person, let alone
Right.
someone who's under 5 feet tall. So that is something that definitely was an issue. But just going back and obviously I haven't ridden this coaster in over 20 years since it's been gone.
Right.
But you look at the POV and you're just like, what are they doing with this thing?
It's such a confusing coaster, and I vaguely remember like seeing this in different books. I'd go to the public library back then when there wasn't as much access to the internet, and I remember seeing a picture of this in one of the coaster books I'd go check out, and just thinking, what on earth is this thing? Like, I knew dueling coasters were a thing, but just the layout, the whole confusing, like, I don't know, just looking at it, it's such an odd looking coaster in general. And
yeah,
and
they didn't have a lot of room to work with. So that's understandable, but I got to do better than that.
Yeah, exactly. Knott's is pretty landlocked. I mean, if anyone's listening has never been, it's essentially a city block is what it feels like.
Yeah,
and it is literally one big city block.
Yeah. So when I'm sure when they're planning for a new coaster, it's like, man, we really have to be resourceful, and so it makes sense that they went with something of this route. But yeah, man, Knott's, you had to have done better. I mean,
right.
And it makes me wonder. I know everyone knows now that TOGO. It's just not good.
Mm-hmm.
No,
I don't know what they were thinking then. If they were like, "Hey, this is cheap," or at this time, I guess Intamin was still kind of getting their feet wet in terms of making good coasters, and
right.
B&M was pretty established at this point, but they were probably a little more expensive out of people's price range.
Mm-hmm.
This is prior to Knott's being bought by Cedar Fair, also.
Right.
Oh yeah,
they were still family owned at the time for another year, I would say. I think they got bought in '98.
Mm-hmm.
So they're probably saying, hey, this might be a good little coaster for this good little spot we have in the corner of the park. They just got rid of their wacky soapbox racers, which had been there for 20 years.
Right. And
probably going to upgrade a little bit, maybe get a little more thrill in the park, something that has a loop in it. And so they got this.
Did you ever have a chance to ride wacky soapbox racers?
No, that's I remember. I was definitely at the park when it was there, but again, I was a little kid. And I was afraid of coasters too. It wasn't like I had enthusiast parents that were trying to get me on everything. My dad ended up forcing me to get on the rides back when I was back in '98. So by then, Windjammer was there. Soapbox racers were not.
Was gone, because I know that a lot of people are really upset when they removed wacky soapbox racers, especially seeing what they especially seeing what they got in place of it. Like, I went to Knott's for the first time and the only time in the summer of 2019.
And that's when I went too for the first time. And
and I love the park. And one of the things I really like about the park is, especially comparing it to other Cedar Fair parks, there's so many unique rides there, like with Calico Mine Ride and the train and I forget the name of the log flume. It's escaping me, but it has such a cool feeling to it. And with like the ghost town and everything, it's a really awesome park. And I think if they were able to keep something like the wacky soapbox racers, that would just be another attraction that they would have that was really nostalgic and really unique. So it's too bad that they took that out.
Right. Yes. And by the mid '90s, we're talking about coaster revolution. Going on at the time, and you got these these little steeplechase coasters there, and Knott's had been trying to do a little bit more in their park at the time, and you had Montezuma's Revenge, you had Boomerang, trying to get a little bit more thrilling aspect of the park, and they probably just figured, hey, this is out of date. Let's try to get something new, but let's try to do it on the cheap.
Right.
And they got what they paid for.
They absolutely did.
Oh, yeah.
I will say though about Windjammer is I think they did a really good job with the theming. So visually, if you're standing in the midway looking at Windjammer, it's pretty. It's wacky looking and weird looking, but it's cool looking. They did with the whole surf theme. They really went all the way with it.
Oh yeah, that's what I was saying. Like when you're standing there as a 10 or 11-year-old kid and you're looking at this coaster with a red and a yellow loop right next to each other, it looks pretty cool.
Yeah. So that area of the park is the boardwalk, section of the park. So
like you got hang time right around the corner, I guess, not super close, but you got that. You got Coast Rider, so it's kind of that boardwalky, surfy theme, and that seems to have really kind of translated and carried over the years.
I don't know if you guys noticed when you guys were there, but just the park is absolutely microscopic.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like we when hang time opened, I was like, oh my gosh, just in the back of the park. And we were staging out right there near the front. Yeah. It took me probably about 15 seconds to run there.
Oh yeah.
I'm like,
it's a very
everything's close by, and it's fun because, like, I mean, not to get off too much of a tangent, but like just the way even Silver Bullet and Jaguar were constructed, like everything is just constructed in such a way that it's not like you would see, like if Jaguar were to be moved to Cedar Point, it would be a totally different layout. Like there's nothing going on with it. It's just a giant monorail, basically. Like it just kind of it does whatever it can with the space it has. So
it just goes over footpaths through
essentially
loop and goes. So and then Silver Bullet it had the lake to work with.
Right. That's true.
It's pretty much it's over footpaths.
Right. Exactly.
It's crazy. You don't see that too often.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I thought it was a really cool park, though. I liked the whole vibe of the park and everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a really complete park. Like you can have a really good full day there and do, like you said, they have some unique attractions too.
Right.
They used to have some more that they've taken out over the years, but it's unfortunate. But it's a corporate park at this point, so it is what it is.
Definitely.
So with Windjammer, though, as we said, it opened in 1997, and I think within the first year they already ran into some problems with it, and they had to replace some parts. And I think on top of the $6.3 million that they spent on the ride, they had to invest another $2 or $3 million into the ride on new parts.
Pretty quickly, yeah. I mean, either that same year or like 98, 99. I mean, and then,
and they did not realize that it was going to shut down every 5 seconds.
Right, yeah. So
start kicking up.
And, the whole, I think, selling point of Windjammer was that both sides would duel, and that became an issue.
That wasn't the case, because I think the yellow side rarely ran, so it was really hard to ever actually see them racing in person, or let alone get a ride on when you're racing. So I'm not sure
if that always seem to go that way. Doesn't it always seem to go to every racing coaster ends up not racing?
Every time, yes.
No, it's so frustrating too, because I love racing coasters when they race.
We'll have to see how some of these newer ones like West Coast Racers shakes out.
Right.
If just over the years it just stops.
Right. Like if technology is in its favor,
I mean, can you name a single racing coaster that still consistently races? Maybe Gemini does.
Even then, like on low capacity days, they're not running both sides.
Like Batman and Robin the Chiller.
Batman quit immediately. Yeah.
And then even with Twisted Colossus, I think they try to match it up, but I think that one's kind of rare too.
Yeah, I mean, I've ridden Twisted Colossus like 150 times. So
wow.
So you can kind of tell like if you're going to be able to race based on where the train is on the lift when you get dispatched.
Okay.
And there's sometimes where you're like, oh, we're sure going to get a duel because we've dispatched away like plenty of time, and then the chain doesn't line up. So yeah, it's and then everyone blames the ops for it. It's like it's not the ops' fault; it's the people's fault. Like, don't blame the ops for that. That's definitely not their problem.
And I think with West Coast Racers, they're trying to guarantee that it will race every time by having like kind of like a staging like a show area.
And I can tell you, so far so good on that. The only problem is that it's only been open for 2 months before it shut down for a year.
Right. So time will tell with that still.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So another reason why they had trouble operating the ride is if there's any kind of wind conditions at all, the ride would shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched a video on YouTube, and I don't know if it's true, but they said on there that a wind gust of as little as 3 miles an hour would shut the ride down.
Yeah, that's what I heard too.
Very ironic given its name. You'd think it would want to jam the wind and go through and power through.
Right. But 3 miles an hour, like I feel like a box fan blows stronger than 3 miles an hour. So, I mean, that's nothing. That's a breeze.
And I don't know if you're going to bring this up, Adam. I don't know if you have it on your show notes, but do you have anything about the name of the coaster being
no, I don't. But I did read about it that for a short amount of time they changed the name to just Jammer. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I guess Windjammer's like an apparel company, and they got angry at I guess the copyright infringement.
Right.
Actually, so I mean, think about all the things that happened in less than 3 years to this coaster.
What a disaster! Yeah,
and I think Knott's tried to really cut their losses there at the end, and they actually sued TOGO and were like, look, this has been too much of a headache. You guys need to pay us something.
I thought it'd be a great YouTube video to go over that lawsuit. But there is not, I cannot find anything online about that lawsuit. I would have loved to see what Knott's had against TOGO in that suit. Just the evidence and everything. But I just cannot find it.
Yeah. What little information I found out about it. So Knott's filed a lawsuit for $16 million against TOGO for pretty much getting a coaster that doesn't operate. But Knott's ultimately, they lost the lawsuit. I don't know on what grounds, but maybe I think it was the
jury. I think the jury decided not to award them anything.
And TOGO, they blamed Knott for the issue, saying that Knott didn't want to invest the money into keeping the ride operational, so that they were trying to cut corners on it. So I don't know how much is true with that. I guess the lawsuit was dropped, and Knott just kind of cut their losses.
Yeah, think about the things that Cedar Fair had to inherit over the years. One of them being Son of Beast.
Right.
And then this is before that, obviously. Just talk about just inheriting a mess.
Right. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Well, even they just purchased the water parks in Texas, and they didn't purchase one in Kansas City. What are they called?
Because they had a death liability on that one. Right. So
where I forget what the name of the water parks.
Schlitterbahn.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Schlitterbahn. Yeah. So they've taken on some challenges. So I think the final year of operation for Windjammer was 2000, March 2nd, 2000. But the coaster stood standing until 2001, until they finally tore it down.
Yeah, it looks like they took it down July of 2001. It was demolished. I think I don't know, if they just kept it up during the legal battle with TOGO.
I think it was during the lawsuit. Yeah, they kept it.
Yeah, because there's no other reason to keep that hunk of junk up. And I mean, obviously they didn't wait very long at all to put in Xcelerator, which, as we all know, is far superior.
Right. Xcelerator opened in 2002. So
so it wasn't like anyone, no one was picketing and saying, "Oh, we need to save this coaster." It was like, let's get it out of here. So
I don't think many people complained that they removed it.
No, I can't imagine.
So we do have some commercials to play. The first commercial we're going to play, I'll set the scene. So this would have been a commercial you would have seen on TV in 1997. You're kind of basically seeing the stormy weather. And I was actually I watched this commercial earlier, and I'm surprised with the tone of the commercial, considering it's a surf theme coaster. Because in my mind, I was thinking more of a Beach Boys, fun California surfing thing. But this is
it makes me think of a preview to Twister or something like that. It's real eerie almost.
It's more of that Ride Warrior, Cedar Point.
I'll tell you guys one thing. Yeah. If there's one thing that defines Buena Park, California, it's really stormy bad weather.
Really?
Or according to the park, I guess. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So let's check this out.
First, Knott's brought you Montezuma's Revenge.
They even got the guy with the scary voice.
Oh yeah.
It's very dramatic.
Yeah.
And Boomerang.
Knott's introduces a new side-by-side racing coaster, Windjammer.
I guess the tornadoes and the wind kind of match up.
Yeah.
Away.
It'll blow you away.
I love how every 90s coaster commercial had the track that was, it's that soundtrack that's in Roller Coaster Tycoon 1 of the screaming. You guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Every 90s coaster commercial.
Just the generic coaster sound.
Then they're generic coaster screaming. It's funny to me.
Well, when I watched this commercial, I thought it was interesting that they focused in, because when Windjammer Surf Racers, which is an interesting name alone, but when I hear that name, I focus in on the surf racers aspect of it. And especially with the theming of the coasters, I mean, the trains they had surfboards on the side of them. So I thought it was interesting with this commercial that they focused on the wind aspect of the name. So it's this tornado. And even in the commercial, they didn't mention surf racers. It was just called Windjammer. So I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that just seems confused to me.
Yeah, like the tone is totally wrong, I think.
I'm looking at it thinking like, what does that have to do with it? I'm like, oh, wind, tornadoes, wind.
Right, yeah.
But
I made the connection eventually, yeah. But
and I don't know if you guys saw, other than the theme, they also had that weird like fish, like that Japanese fish,
like a blowfish looking thing. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Maybe that was like a Togo thing because Togo's from Japan. Maybe
right.
It was
that could be.
Kind of had themes, shades of that, but that was weird too. The whole thing was just weird.
It's something that I've never really been clear on, and I know it's probably a legal name was Windjammer Surf Racers, but everything I've seen, it's just been Windjammer. And like I get that, you know, we shorten coaster names, but it's something that like I've seen old Windjammer shirts and it's just Windjammer on it. Like it doesn't say Windjammer Surf Racers.
Right.
So I don't know. Maybe that was just a thing back then.
And then when they changed the name to Jammer,
right?
Was it Jammer Surf Racers?
Ooh, I don't know.
I thought it was just Jammer.
Me too.
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah, that I'm not sure. But so we're looking at some photos now. But as far as like the theming, like they had this beach tower. Like I don't know
like
if that's
a lifeguard.
Is that where the operator sat up in that tower? The operator of the coaster, maybe.
Ooh, yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the theming was pretty cool, and like the structure had like this curved roof, and the sign, you know, was very 90s looking.
Oh, very 90s. Very true to the 90s fashion.
Yeah, and this coaster was absolutely built like directly over the walkway.
Oh yeah. I mean, look how 90s that is. You got a scrambler on one side of the loops and a tray bit on the other.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, some great flat rides.
Yeah,
compliment it.
And then I also read that where you could purchase your on-ride photo, I think, and some gifts, it was like the facade of that building was built to look like a yacht.
Oh,
so they really carried the theming throughout.
Yeah, definitely.
It's, you know, I guess Knott's is a theme park, so I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, they didn't hold back on that. So when I look back at these commercials, though, I'm always happy to find one that has like a catchy jingle. I couldn't find one for 1997 anyways for Windjammer. Instead, we got that like scary movie.
Did they even have television back in 1997? I don't know.
Like, so long ago. I got to think about that. I don't remember TV back then.
Speaking about that, this is kind of off topic, but I was watching a POV earlier, and it was from 1997. And it was like someone obviously like took a camera on and just filmed. They were sitting in like the back row. They weren't even sitting in the front. But I was thinking, like, did they have to take on like a handheld VHS camcorder?
Oh, yeah. I think that's how they used to do it. Like I don't know if you guys know Sean Flaherty. He's got a lot of POVs from the 90s where he had to have like a full-on camcorder.
Right.
On the
yeah. Because I remember seeing him on a Discovery Channel special way back in the day, being interviewed for Millennium Force, and it's like, man, this guy's cool. But he had to have had a camcorder. I mean, probably a big clunky one.
Like that's what I remember resting on your shoulder.
Yeah,
we used to shoot film back in the 90s when we were going places, and we had a camcorder. I mean, maybe people were professional, maybe had something a little more aerodynamic, but it wasn't exactly small.
Right, because GoPros weren't a thing back then.
No, not at all.
Cell phones were around, but most people didn't really have them. And if you did, there certainly wasn't a camera.
The first cell phone camera came out in 2002. So
that's right.
Definitely not then.
Yeah, that's crazy. So this other commercial that I'm going to play is from the 90s, and it doesn't have anything to do with Windjammer, but I thought people like to hear a catchy jingle, so we're going to check this one out.
Yes.
This one is actually a commercial for Indian Trails, which was new. I think this might be from 92, but it has a catchy jingle, and everyone likes a catchy jingle. So here we go. Don't miss! Don't miss! It's almost like a rap. Don't miss! Don't miss! Don't miss! Don't miss out on the night gear!
Especially when admission for kids is just $9.95.
Good grief.
$9.95 at Knott.
What year was this?
So don't miss
yeah.
it. Come see the
I think it was like mid-90s. So yeah, that's it.
Oh yeah.
Don't miss. Yeah. So it looked like in that commercial that Snoopy was there, so they must have had Snoopy.
They've always had Snoopy since I can remember.
Have they?
Wow.
Okay.
I wonder if that was before Cedar Fair.
Yeah, maybe. I wonder if that was part of the deal.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember when Cedar Point introduced the Peanuts.
98 is when Camp Snoopy was announced. So 99, I believe, was the first year.
Okay, because before that was Berenstain Bears. So.
Yeah.
Interesting. We now know, obviously, they took down Windjammer Surf Racers and they replaced it with Xcelerator, which is pretty awesome. There's been, people have saying, like, I wonder if they'll try another racing coaster in the future at Knott, or I guess, they could. Obviously, they're a little bit landlocked, but as far as Knotts in the future, do you see them attempt some sort of racing coaster again?
That's tricky. I mean, Knotts is such a interesting park to consider about what they need and what they could get. I mean, obviously, like a hypercoaster would just be amazing there,
right?
And
that would be just like
you can put that in there too.
Yeah, I was gonna say it would just kind of be built over top of everything.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that totally makes sense. And they don't have a height limit or anything there because Supreme Scream's like 315 feet tall.
Right. Oh yeah, so, that's right.
So I think it's definitely, and California, just in the worst way, needs a hypercoaster.
Absolutely. It's crazy that they don't have more out there. Or even
it's not just California either. It's the entire Western United States.
Right. Yeah. That's absolutely true. We're spoiled. Well, Nick and I were over here in the Midwest.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Raging Bull and Diamondback and Magnum. Yeah. I mean, you're just loaded with. I mean, everything from like, I want to say like Valley Fair West.
Yeah,
that's where you're getting hypercoasters like Mamba and Titan and Goliath and Desperado. And it's just like, what is it about the Midwest and the East where you get a hypercoaster?
Right.
Yeah. And then of course, the two crappy Gio Vanilla they had to go to the parks on the western side of the
right.
So like I like Magic Mountain and Over Texas are by far the two Six Flags parks I go to the most.
Okay,
and they both have the worst hypercoaster they could possibly get.
I was actually gonna find a way to bring that up. I watch a lot of your videos, and I always hear you crap on Goliath, and I'm like, man, I didn't hate it, but so if you could sum it up in a sentence or two, what is it about the Giovannolas that you just can't stand?
Okay, so. Hypercoasters, I understand if they're not like total airtime machines. Like I love Raging Bull. It's not a total airtime machine, but it's got some airtime.
Sure.
Goliath's got and Titan just have none. Like it's like maybe at least get some over the drop. And the drop is at a 60-degree angle.
Right.
It's just inexcusable.
That's true.
So even in the back row, you don't come out of your seat even in the back row, which is crazy.
You're right. Okay.
And you got the floater hill. The floater hill is hit or miss. Like sometimes it's like, oh yeah, okay, that's decent, sustained. Okay. Sometimes you don't get anything, and then the rest of it, they got the bone crushing G's. So if you're into that, then that's great. I don't personally like it. I don't mind it. It's not my thing. I don't find it exciting.
Not a preference, yeah.
So and then it's a bunch of turns. And it's just like, so sometimes I get the urge to ride it, and I'm like, oh, and then when I get off, I'm like, I now remember why I don't like that ride. So
yeah. I feel that. Yeah, totally. I'm the same way. I prefer airtime to, if I had to pick airtime or positive G's, I'm going to pick airtime every time. That's why I don't love I-305 and, all these.
Right. Me neither. I think I-305 is a lot better than Goliath.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But again, like I have it ranked number 70 on my list, which is about 65 spots lower than most people have.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
But just to tie Goliath back to Windjammer.
Yes.
Goliath was another coaster where I went to Magic Mountain for the first real time. Like I used to go back in the early 90s when I was a kid. And I remember like all the stuff they used to have, but I didn't ride it because I was little. But it was like 2000. I was 12 years old when I would go to Magic Mountain for the first time to actually ride stuff. And Goliath was very intimidating to me because I had never ridden a coaster that big. And it just has a lap bar, so I'm kind of freaking out. So when I ride it and I get off, I feel accomplished. So I really thought I loved the ride. Now coming back to it later, now I'm thinking like, God, this ride falls short in so many ways.
Yeah,
kind of how I felt with Windjammer in terms of I rode it, had a loop, I got off it, I felt accomplished. Right. But then I don't have the joy of going back to and riding it now. But if you just look at it and just look at, especially after the loops, the tiny little turns and dips it has.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just like the whole ride is filler.
That's true.
It really seemed to mimic Jaguar in that way, just the tiny little dips and the
right.
So
it just makes me wonder what were they thinking? Like it's almost like the whole ride's a decoration.
Yeah. It was just eye candy. Yeah,
like, it looks good, and then it's like, but you're right. It's like it's just, and then of course you got the TOGO transitions are embarrassing. Have you guys ridden the New York Big Apple coaster?
I have not. No.
I've been on some of the stand-up coasters though.
Okay. I'm not sure if I rode the one at King's Dominion before they closed that down.
Yeah, I did too. And I've been on Skywriter at Canada's Wonderland.
Yeah, I never got on that one. Mm-hmm. But the transitions on those coasters are just horrendous.
Oh, they're awful. Yeah.
You're talking about having 2 cinder blocks on the side of your head with those stupid turns and those little dip. And then it's like, okay, so you smash your head in on the turn.
Yeah.
Then you get a little dip and out of it. It's like, it's not even worth it. You give me something. If I'm going to smash my head in, I need to have something a little better than that.
It needs to be worth it at least.
Yeah. Right. Worth the pain. Yeah.
So I think that about wraps up Windjammer Surf Racer. Is obviously a big giant failure from the start. Can't be too upset that they took it out. We got Xcelerator, and I'm pretty sure TOGO. I don't know if they did much else after that coaster in America anyways.
I think they shut down their American division probably right after that.
Yeah. I think they filed for bankruptcy, I believe. So I'm sure that was probably the final nail in their coffin.
No, nobody would want to hire him after that.
No. Once people start seeing lawsuit and the headlines, and they're like, "Nah, we're not going to even go there."
Away.
Yeah.
And if you guys want to see something really satisfying, so anyone out there listening wants to see something very satisfying, Sean Flaherty has a video of them actually dismantling Windjammer.
Oh, man,
that'd be very satisfying.
Yeah. Oh man. So I guess in closing, Chris, you're the mastermind of predictions. What do you predict is going to happen at Knott's here in the near future? If you could guess, what do you think could come in? What do you think is likely?
Oh man, that's a good question. I just did a whole video. I haven't released it yet, but I just wrote it out for Six Flags parks in terms of like what's their biggest gap and what can they get. But for Knott's is just so tricky because they have some gaps in their lineup, but just the whole space issue is crazy. And what the heck are they going to remove that would actually open up anything? Like if they remove Pony Express, that's enough room for like a bathroom in a
right.
stall.
It's tiny. Yeah.
That's the one I could see them remove.
And that's another one. That's another coaster that's basically on top of footpaths also.
Yeah. So,
I mean, the biggest coaster that they can remove that would actually free up some stuff is like Ghost Rider, but they're not going to take out Ghost Rider.
No.
Ghost Rider's
I love Ghost Rider. Yeah.
So I'm thinking like what? Okay. Obviously what I really want is a hyper coaster.
Yeah.
That would be the perfect fit for them for so many reasons. Get that floater airtime in there, a good smooth steel coaster, people eater. They'd be very popular. Definitely would be a good option. But in terms of what I could actually see going there, maybe some kind of like a mock multi-launch kind of gives them, even though they already have at least three launch coasters I can think of with Montezuma's, Xcelerator, Pony Express.
Right.
They don't really have one that afterwards features a lot of inversions. So it kind of combines a launch coaster with like a hang time. Mm-hmm. So that could kind of work. And it's like, okay, do they really need another launch coaster? It's like, well, I think the answer to that is, yeah, because they don't really have a lot of space to do anything else. Launch coaster kind of allows them to put a lot of stuff into a small spot. I can see that. Maybe something from like, everyone always brings this up. A Chance Hyper GTX would be awesome there.
Oh, I love it. I would love that. I love that coaster.
Mm-hmm. Nice compact. I didn't love Lightning Run at first, and then I rode it again last year, and it just blew me away. So
it just fits that park. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is a great coaster. Yeah. I'm surprised more parks do not have one of those.
Yeah, I don't think they're super marketable, which is probably why you don't see them as much.
Right.
You don't see many Chance coasters outside of the Morgan Hypers, really.
If you think about it, there's no novelty to it. I mean, you look at the Eurofighter, it's got to be on a vertical drop. Look at the Raptor, it's got a single rail.
Right.
The Chance Hyper GTX, what's special about it? Other than the fact that it's an awesome ride, but
it's hard to market. Right. I think you're right on though with the launch coaster, especially considering Knott has so little room to work with. Mm-hmm. I think that just gives them with the launch coaster a lot more opportunity to create something that is bigger and you can do more. rather than
and they could do the Raptor option, but they have one up north and
the capacity issue with the Raptors.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, and
right.
Knott's gets a ton of foot traffic for as
Oh
small.
my gosh. Well, I mean, Knott's is I love going to Knott's in like weekdays in February when it's empty. But like you go on the weekend, or especially if you go during Hunt or Not Scary Farm, it's just a madhouse.
Oh, I can't imagine.
It's so crowded there.
Yeah. Speaking of that, though, when I was looking for some commercials and stuff to watch, I saw a story. I think it was from the 90s, but apparently Knott's had the brilliant idea of doing for Cinco de Mayo, doing a nickel admission to the park.
Oh, jeez.
So not really thinking what would happen. 30,000 people showed up. Like first thing in the morning, and
Lord,
or I think it was more than 30,000. Anyways, they hit capacity, and people were not happy, and it like turned into like this 200-person brawl, and they had to bring in the riot squad to like disperse everybody. But yeah, I thought that was funny.
It kind of reminds me of 2018, 2019 when it was the last Sunday of the year. It was like the last day that you can like renew your pass.
Yeah.
And they made it a free friend day at Magic Mountain.
Oh yeah.
And both days hit capacity.
Oh
the
man.
First day I went there unsuspecting and I just ran into it. Second day I came fully prepared. And both days were just absolute clusters. But I was like, I can't believe they're doing this again. It's great, but it's I missed that on this year because of COVID.
Right.
Right.
But it was just like I couldn't believe they were doing it again. But it's like, you know what? I'm going there. I'm filming it. This is just too good.
Oh yeah. In 2019, we I mean, I live 2 hours from Cedar Point, so we had just gotten our gold pass, or my wife's gold pass, and everyone else and their sister got their gold pass as well because they announced it right during Halloween weekend. So we went and I had never had it happen. I've lived near Cedar Point for 22 years and never had I had to drive around the parking lot, the entire parking lot, for an hour plus waiting to find a spot. So
right.
That is
it was just. Oh, and I mean, you guys both know how huge that parking lot is. So
it's just massive.
It's just absurd. But yeah, I mean, I can't imagine a nickel. What kind of bright idea is that nickel admission?
Oh,
I mean,
it's crazy. Yeah,
it's a heck of a deal. But geez, what do you expect, guys? I mean, come on.
Right.
It's like we got 30,000 people. We made $20.
Right.
Yeah, it's not even worth it. Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Chris, for being on with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I've been watching the chain lift for years, even before I had my channel.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy your stuff. And I especially appreciate the videos you do about the years.
Oh, right.
I don't think anyone really appreciates history and years, like things that happen per year more than me. But I know that you guys seem to, when you do that, I always get like really nerding out about the history of stuff. So
yeah, those videos are really fun to do, and with both the chain lift and with Nick and I with Airtime Misfits, we are all about the nostalgia of amusement parks, especially defunct parks, defunct coasters. We're big fans of it, so anytime we can nerd out over defunct stuff, we're happy. So.
Oh heck yeah.
So with Airtime Thrills, they can find you on Instagram and YouTube, I believe. Are you on Twitter?
Yep. No, too good for Twitter. Just kidding.
Yeah, fair enough.
Right,
we hardly tweet.
I've been told I'm too good. No, I'm just. they said, "Why aren't you on Twitter?" I said, "I don't have that many interesting thoughts, so I'll just put pictures and do YouTube."
Right. Yeah. Fair enough. Absolutely. And then I believe you also have a T-shirt shop on Teespring, correct?
Yeah. So if you go on one of my videos, there's I have my shop underneath my my description. So just go in there, click on there, see what I got.
Yeah. So yeah, guys, make sure you check out Chris on YouTube. His videos are awesome. Anything, amusement park or coaster related, they're all very knowledgeable, very well done.
Oh yeah. I watch every release the day it comes out. I sit at home after work every day and unwind. It's pretty great. I love it.
Yeah. They're really well done.
Video coming out about 2002. So some of the stuff that was brought up today just kind of tied back into that. Like when I was saying with the again, I was here, so whenever I use knowledge, it's a good thing.
Yeah. We heard most of that, but at the end of it sounded like Wayne's World when they're ordering at the drive-thru. but I think the gist of it was though, Chris has a video coming out about 2002. So
yeah, be sure to watch.
And I'm a big history nerd, so there you go.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that comes through in your videos. You definitely know what you're talking about, and definitely appreciate your videos and what you do for the community. Chris is one of the good ones, so make sure you check him out on Airtime Thrills, Instagram and YouTube. Thanks again, Chris, and we'll hope to have you on again in the future if we ever talk about any
flashback.
Yes,
flashback. We need to do it.
Oh yes, yeah, flashback. Absolutely, we'll have Chris back on. That's
Son of Beast flashback. Yeah, you guys need anything? If you need an old guy to talk about coasters, just,
hey, we're old dudes and we talk about old coasters. That's our saying, man. So you have.
Yes, we would absolutely love to have you back on.
All right, awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks again, Chris. All right, guys, that will wrap it up for this episode of Airtime Misfits. If you haven't done so already, you can check us out at airtimemisfits.com and follow us on Instagram and YouTube. Thanks again, guys, and we will see you later.